Hey everybody, how's it going? So today I want to talk a little bit about this comment that's been coming up regularly in my YouTube comment section, my email inbox, and now even my Reddit inbox with regards to things like GoFundMe's and Patreons and Kickstarters. And I want to talk about what my policy was 3.5 years ago and how not really the comments, but mostly the reality and world events have changed my policy. Because as you can see from the links in the video description down below, obviously my policy on this has changed, and I figured I would explain how and why this came to be. Let's talk a little bit about what my policy was on this about 3.5 years ago. In the video that you see above on Patreon, I talk about why it is I don't have one. The TLDR of that video is that what I do is actual work. There are people that claim that doing YouTube videos is not real work. Maybe we can have that argument with other content creators, but with myself, this is fundamentally and objectively false because most of what I'm doing or what I've put the most time and effort into is filming my job. I pay 13 employees here, I pay rent and taxes in New York City, and I make a living by dealing with walk-in, paying normal customers. I'm filming what I'm doing to their devices. So this is actually a job. For me putting up the video was not the way that I expected to monetize my business. That was not the goal. The goal was to, go through as many of those machines and crunch through as many of them as possible so that at the end of the day, there was enough money to pay all the people here. And that is something that Paul, Steve, and I, and everybody else here have done an absolute excellent job of. I'm not rich, but I pay my staff well, and I have my store, and my kitty eats wellness. And if there's any better metric for whether or not you're doing well in life, it's the food that you feed your kitty. So that aside, that was never really my goal with it. My goal was to help people avoid the miserable mistakes that I made. I've had 3 businesses. One did one was this one, which started with nothing and did very well, and the other one started with a partner that invested in it, invested a lot in it, and it went so I thought that perhaps if I share my stories on this, in a therapeutic way, I'll be helping other people not make the mistakes that I had made. There are people that say that I am a millionaire. They claim that I'm a millionaire based on not having statistics. They are right in a sense, which is that if I had made proper business decisions in my early 20s, I would be a multimillionaire right now rather than where I am. So what I thought I would do with this is I would discuss the mistakes that I had made and what it is I could have done differently, what I've done right, what I've done wrong, from the perspective of somebody who's actually had to live with doing it wrong and just eat that L and feel the pain of it. And it's a therapeutic aspect of it, knowing that somebody else who may have not had role models or not had mentors that could guide them through this process may avoid making the mistakes that I made because I didn't have good mentors or role models or elders in my life that could guide me through this process. And it also was really enjoyable to me to help people just skirt around the misery of learning board repair. 10 years ago, it wasn't like today where you could just Google how to solder a QFN and there was a bunch of really good guides on it. I remember 10 years ago, the only thing you got was one of those little smartboard things where there's like little tracks and flux and like you're pushing the solder into it. This is not how any of it works in real life. All this information was held very close to the vest. I tried once in 2009-10, again in 2012, again in the end of 2013, and it wasn't until 2014 that I was worth a shit when it came to board repair. And I remember saying that whole time when I felt that frustrating failure, when I would go home after 6 hours of straight trying to figure it out and getting nowhere, when I figure this out, I'm going to make a connect the dots guide to this and publish it for everyone so nobody goes through this crap ever again. That was my goal, is just revenge on this problem that I was having that I was unable to solve. And it felt good that I was able to solve it, to the point where people said I helped them turn oops into give me a minute. Or when I see people that are 16 that are starting their own businesses that are actually profitable and successful, unlike companies like WeWork that can actually pay their rent from things like profit rather than stealing from investors. But this was something that I took great pride in, and I really enjoyed it. And that was not something that required a Patreon. It wasn't what I was looking to do. I wasn't looking to monetize my business through the YouTube platform. If you arrange my videos in order from oldest to newest, if you just look at what I did for the first 2 or 3 years, this stuff is so fundamentally not clickbait, not promotional content. This is stuff that no marketing department in the world would say, this is how I want my business represented. It was a jackass ranting into his cheap cell phone camera about the things that were on his mind. And it was It wasn't something that I had done with the plan of monetizing that way. It was something I did at the end of the day to blow off steam. Now, how is it that I changed over from that in 2015 to having these little Streamlabs donation links and stuff like that down below? There were about three factors that contributed to that. The first factor that contributed to this was that I started live streaming around the end of 2016, the beginning of 2017. I had very crappy internet here at the store. I actually had DSL, which is useless in 2019. It's a joke. It's the dial-up of our day. It's 500 kilobit per second up kind of garbage. Then I got Time Warner Cable. But Time Warner Cable was about $100-something a month, and it was useless for live streaming. In order for me to get a regular 3 to 7 megabit per second from Time Warner that's actually reliable in a business location, I needed to pay $279 a month. Forget 20 megabit up, so that I could reliably actually get 6. But you don't pay $279. That's the special deal that you get if you got that triple play bundle with a bunch of cell phones you don't need and cable that I don't use. So I pay over $450 a month after tax for internet, which is absolutely disgusting, so that I could do live streams. That by itself was not what contributed to it. At the same time, I started lobbying in Nebraska. I wasn't even so much looking to make my point there, so much as I was to illuminate to all of you the lies that lobbyists tell politicians to get them to go along with anti-repair legislation. And I thought that if I just put that out there, that would be invaluable, even if I don't convince anybody of anything. Having the average everyday person listen to the crap that lobbyists say without even having my commentary, because I remember posting one without commentary, that in and of itself would be very valuable to people, and that would change more minds than if I actually said anything. So I wound up visiting the Nebraska legislature. I wasn't aware, because I couldn't get a straight answer on the phone as to whether or not I could record there, so I wound up bringing my camcorder. I brought a little mini recorder if I could plug into an XLR deck. If they didn't have that, I actually bought mics that I could put in each of the positions. I went all out to make sure that I could record it regardless of what was or was not allowed. And I wound up spending about $2,000 or $3,000 on that, in addition to additional batteries to live stream if there wasn't an outlet and all this type of stuff. That in and of itself did not incentivize me to do the Streamlabs thing, but it was a contributing factor. The thing that got me to put that little link where somebody could have a message show up on the screen was when I had somebody actually call and email the store complaining about the fact that Lewis had ignored them. And I go, what are you talking about? He's like, I gave him $5 or $10 or something dollars, and he didn't. I forget what it was. It's been like three years at this point. I gave Lewis this money, and he never, he ignored me. He thinks he's too good for me. And I thought, what are you talking about? I don't have donation links. Apparently, this guy actually whoised the store website, found the email address that's registered with the domain name that I check probably once a year when it's set to expire, which is bad, but it's reality. It was a throwaway email address that I had, and he had sent money to that address via PayPal. There's no PayPal account associated with it, nor is that an email address I checked, so I never saw it. But this person actually thought that there was something that I'd read. And it was at that point that I decided I'm going to stop being stubborn. Fine, I have over 100,000 subscribers. I'll do the shit that everybody else does. And I put that Streamlabs thing there. And it also did happen to help fund things like when I got the internet that cost $450 a month, so I could do regular live streams, as well as helping fund me do the whole traveling around the country to whether it's Albany, Nebraska, or Boston to record these types of hearings. Also, when it comes to platforms like Patreon, one of the things with Patreon is they seem to look at YouTube creators and say, have you been demonetized because of YouTube's poor application of vague policies? Come over to our platform where we'll give you no communication and ban you from it over poorly explained and vague policies. Now, whether or not you agree or disagree with the bans that they had on certain people, one of the things that I look at, regardless of what I think of those individuals, is that what many of them were doing was not actually, in and of itself, illegal. Maybe it's something that you consider against your specific morals or ethics. Maybe it's against what you think politically. Maybe you dislike them. But it wasn't something that was actually illegal, or that's something that occupied a gray area. That's different from what I do. What I do does occupy a legal gray area. As some of you know, if you've been following from 900,000 subscribers ago, can't believe it was that long ago, was that a few years ago I put up a video on how to replace the trackpad and keyboard fuse if it blows in a MacBook Air, and I included a teeny tiny bit of a diagram that showed where that fuse was. And I was contacted by Kilpatrick and Townsend, where they were fairly pushy about
Mr. Rossman, please.
Is this
Mr. Rossman?
Now, I
My name is calling from the law firm of Kilpatrick, Townsend, Stockton. We represent Apple, and I'm calling to speak with Mr. Rossman.
And I responded to Kilpatrick and Townsend and said, if Apple wants me to remove this video, that's great. we have no problem complying. Send a DMCA request our way, and we'll do it. The reason I did that is because I did not want to have to explain to 100,000 of my subscribers at the time why it is that I deleted this informative educational video that is going to help tens of thousands of people to fix this problem when they have it with their MacBook because their hands were damp while they were using the trackpad. And if you're going to want me to delete my content, and if you're going to put me in a situation where I need to explain myself to my subscribers, then how about you do it? How about you file the claim? Because one of the things that happens with a DMCA claim is that you have to explain why you want that content taken down. I wanted Apple to attach their name to the fact that they didn't want you to know where the trackpad fuse was on the MacBook Air. And they wound up never pursuing it. There was a serious public backlash at the time against what was going on, and they seemed to have taken the safe PR route of saying, screw it, we'll take the L on this one. However, since that never made it to court, since there was never a legal battle regarding it, it is a gray area. And since it is a gray area, I'm curious if I'm going to base my funding on something. Should I base my funding on a platform that seems to let people go simply when it disagrees with them, much less when they occupy a legal gray area? Because again, whether you love or hate, whether you agree or disagree with the people that Patreon has gotten rid of, the question that I ask myself, because it's relevant to my situation, is were they in a legal gray area? And many of them were not. Do I trust that type of platform when it comes to my money or what it is that I base my business on? And the answer at the time was no. Now, keeping that in mind, one of the things that bothered me a lot 3.5 years ago, and even 5 or 6 years ago when I started doing this, is that a lot of people said it's a stupid thing to do videos like this. It's going to hurt your business. One of the things that I really have a disdain for is this garbage zero-sum mindset, whereby for one person to do well, this person has to fail. For you to make money, this person has to have been stolen from or has to have had their money taken away from them in some way. I don't like that zero-sum mindset that people have about the economy, particularly when it comes to my business. I don't believe that for me to do well, that I need to hide information from you. I don't think that you have to have less knowledge in order for me to do better. So if I share how to do board repairs with you, that doesn't mean that I'm going to make less money. The way I see it is not that I need to take a larger percentage of the pie as it exists. Rather, let's take this small pie and make it as large as we can. Let's make this a very large pie so that even if I'm taking a smaller percentage of it, I'm still taking home way more than I would have if I had just chosen to be greedy and take a larger percentage of the smaller pie. By getting more people involved in repair, by getting more people interested in it, more people excited about it, more people understand that it exists, I'm increasing the size of the pie. And even if I'm getting a smaller percentage of the overall jobs, it doesn't matter because I'm still getting a lot more work. That's the way I've always seen it. And there was this one person that had reached out to me about 3.5 years ago, back when this was blowing up on Reddit, and I was getting all these garbage offers, like, just people that kind of sit there and troll the first page of Reddit and go, how can I make money off of this today? One of the ways was there was this one garbage contract that I wound up getting from Vice about starting a TV show with them that I went through and disseminated here. And the other one that I haven't talked about was more than maybe like 1 or 2 mentions in passing live streams, was there were individuals that were open to buying my business for the $1 to $3 million at the time, but there was this bullshit NDA that I would have had to sign, and they also wanted me to not make the videos that I do into the future, but also get rid of all the educational videos that I had. One of the reasons I didn't mention it much at the time is because I was actually very sincerely, deeply ashamed of the fact that I was actually considering taking this offer. I never did, but I thought about it. And just the fact that I thought about it, I felt like I had just fucked over my employees so badly, because I knew that the people that were working here were going to have their salaries slashed to, your standard repair industry franchise rubbish after I left. I felt like a piece of shit for the fact that I even considered this. But the thing is, they explained to me when I said, why do you care about this? Other industries, other people in this business have videos as well. They said, you don't understand. They show that they're competent. What you do is you show them how to be competent. That's the difference. They show the machine, they show them doing something, they're done, and look, it works. Whereas what you do is you say, here's the problem. How would you approach that problem? Here's how I would approach it. Here's why I would approach it this way. And here's how you can apply that mindset to approach it on a different problem. You teach people to be competent rather than demonstrating competence, which is, you don't need to do that. You just need to do the first part to promote your business. That other part is going to allow other people to open up right next to you. It wouldn't make sense to invest in a business if you're teaching other people how to undercut you. And that was their mindset. It's something that I think is really stupid. It's something I think is really short-sighted, and it's something that I think I've been vindicated on years later, given that business has continued to go up at the same rate that it was going up prior to me starting a YouTube channel, after I started it, and after it became popular. I think that that is a garbage zero-sum mindset, and I think that it has no place in modern business. Unfortunately, what I found is that many financiers think very similarly to that jackass that wanted to take my company 3.5 years ago. They believe it's a zero-sum game. And it's very easy to Google me and see what my business is about, and this is what I've heard from many financiers that are not willing to put in more than what would come out to a few weeks of my payroll. And even the people who are smart enough to realize that that's garbage and that implementation matters rather than just having videos up, you actually need to be able to run a company, even the people who agree with me that this whole zero-sum mindset is crap, you Google me and you see that I occupy a legal gray area. And one of the areas where I was stuck sounding like one of those lying lobbyists from the Boston hearing was when they would say, so, how did that case end? Well, they never decided to pursue it because of bad PR. What if they decide to pursue it? What would happen to your company and your assets and whatever, and your business plan? I don't have an answer to that. I don't have an answer to that that's going to satisfy anybody to the point where they're willing to give me a few weeks more than payroll as a loan. And the only companies that I've been able to find that would actually be willing to finance this in the time that I need, to the point that I need, are companies where they're essentially, they're like 60s to 70s, standard mobsters with about similar interest rates. It's companies that know they're going to lose a lot of money on a lot of crappy bets. So they're just going to make sure they make as much back on the bets that work as they can. And it's financing on terms that would be complete and utter garbage. It would be dumb to sign any of these contracts. And it's not something that I'd want to do. This is what got me to change my mindset on these platforms. It wasn't the comments. It wasn't the people bringing up that you should consider a GoFundMe. It wasn't even the individual that called me a wimp in that message for my thoughts on funding. It was the fact that I never anticipated when I started doing this series that I would actually be hurting my business by doing it. I thought through the entire landscape of what it would be like educating other people, and I never cared for the fact that I was creating competition. But what I never knew was that I would be hurting my chances of getting funding into the future if I ever needed to expand. My business is based on net profit. It's not based on debt. It's based on real people doing real work to build something from nothing. And I always thought, I'm going to, I don't need a loan. I'm not expanding or doing anything. But someday, if I run a profitable business in an ethical manner, someday when I do need that, it will be there. And realizing that when I did need it, it wasn't there. And the reason that's cited for it not being there is the very content that I thought would be, I put a lot of time and energy and effort into, the stuff that I thought was actually making the world or my industry a little bit better, is the citation for why it is that my business is not eligible for this thing that I always thought would be there. That's honestly, I don't know how else to phrase it other than it felt like what it would feel like if you were married for 10 years and you came home and you found out that your spouse was cheating on you. Not just that she was cheating on you then, but that she had been cheating on you for the past 5 or 6 years and you just found out. That's the feeling that I had, that sinking, crappy feeling that I talk about in this video when I realized that this was the reality. And it definitely did change my mindset. All this being considered, I have to reconcile the fact that I am a for-profit business with the fact that the small charitable aspect of my for-profit business has completely screwed over my ability to get financing when it is time to expand. So I've been debating how it is that I can reconcile this in a way that is fair and equitable. Now, I've been reading some of your messages and criticisms, and this is something that actually comes up many times. You're just the person who worded it the strongest, where they said, by being whole restrictive about this concept of donations, you're removing people's agency. A statement like $5 if you made over 1,000 is ridiculous. Not just because it's so wimpy, but because it makes demands. There are huge amounts of people that want to see you succeed. Don't restrict yourself and blah, blah, blah. Now, I don't see this to be wimpy. I simply see this to be targeting. When I'm speaking to people on YouTube, I'm speaking to 1 million people. But the reality is that this is not an ask that I would make of 1 million people. It's an ask I would make of a small subsection. So the people who are here for the lulz, no. The people who are here because they find they don't like Apple, No, the people who are here because they may have kind of taken interest in it, all of these are people who, why the hell would they find any interest in helping somebody fund a store? This doesn't make sense. But if you are one of that small subset, one of the 5,266 people that actually watched VCCIO versus VCore to the end, I know that the only reason you're watching that is because you're making money in this industry, because there's no other reason to click on something that boring. You're the people who are actually making a living in this field, that are benefiting from this content from a monetary perspective. And one of the original things that I proposed was, if you've made $10,000 over the past 5 years in this content, would you be open to giving 0.1 or 0.2% of that as a one-time donation, being $10 or $20? Now, you may think 10,000 is a lot of money, but it's actually not in this perspective. I started doing educational videos in 2014. So if you charge half what I do, which means you're probably outside of New York in some place where rent and everything is actually normal, and you've been charging $150 or so, and you've been doing one repair a month since I started doing educational videos, that would actually add up to $10,000. If the work that I've put in is so bad that you're not able to do at least one additional repair a month in your business when you weren't doing logic board repair before, then frankly this content sucks and it's not even worth $1 to you, much less 10. So I'm only speaking to that subset of people, because when people hear this type of thing on YouTube, it's, I just watch this for kicks. Why the hell would I donate something? It doesn't seem fair to make that ask of individuals who have not received something that's has real monetary value in return. One of my friends, Jake, always says, can I take it to the deli and cash it in for a sandwich? It's a line from a song that he did about 10 years ago where he was ragging on these A&R executives that'll say, if you show up on this person's album and play for free, it'll be great exposure. If somebody says they've offered you something, can you take what they've offered you and actually exchange it for food? And if you haven't, then it's kind of worthless. And the thing that I like about this type of system is that what I would get would not be what I ask for. It would be what I have earned. Not what I think I deserve, not what I ask for, what I have earned. If I've allowed people to make money in this business, and I've helped them make money in this business by enabling them to do something that they thought they weren't able to, then this will be funded. If I have not done that, then it will not be. But it will be based on what I earned rather than what I asked for, which I think is the most fair way to do it. Below, I've posted a vague approximation of what I believe it would cost to do this move that is itemized by the specific expenses that would exist. To be clear, I do not expect that, nor do I feel entitled to it. That is simply the worst-case scenario that I imagine in New York City as to what it would cost to move a business with 13 employees that does what I do from one location to another and set up properly in that new location so that it doesn't wind up like this.
He's alive. Guy who knows a guy Construction Corp. Incorporated.
But at the end of the day, I understand that that's probably not what I would get. And that I would have to make do otherwise. And to be very clear, if I wake up and I see that this has $3 donated to it, I will still be happy and overjoyed at the fact that somebody thought that what I created was at the very least worth $3. However, if I wake up and there's $0 in here, to be clear, I would still make this move. Maybe I wouldn't do things as nice. I have a master's degree, if not a PhD, in how to do shoestring crap together when you don't have the money to do it properly. But I would still make this move, and I would find a way to make it work, even if it meant I couldn't do it the way I wanted, even if it meant that the floor is still going to do this, even if it meant that I wasn't able to have the setup that I wanted, or even if it meant that I would have to deal with signing a contract I'm uncomfortable with that is with fairly crappy predatory terms when it comes to funding. I would find a way to make it work, because if I don't find a way to make it work, what I'm doing is I'm sending a message to the people watching that if you try to do the right thing, you will get screwed. If I simply allow it to be that, well, you're not supposed to make educational videos because if you do, you may get in hot water, or if you try to do what you think is right, you're not going to be able to advance the way you want to in the future, that is an absolute and utter garbage message to send to a group of 1 million people that are watching. So even if this gets $0, I will still make the move work by hook or by crook, regardless of how crappy it's going to be for the people who were involved in it. I will find a way to make it work because it has to work. there is I remember reading the other day that in order for chickens to not peck at each other constantly and have all their feathers missing, you're supposed to give them like 90 to 120 square feet to graze in. And at this business, we have about 55 square feet per person. So we actually give half the square footage per person for humans as what you're supposed to give to chickens so that they don't get claustrophobic and peck at one another. It's something that I need to make work one way or the other. So my point is, even if I get $0 in this, I will still be making the move. It just means doing so with absolute garbage predatory lenders and doing it on a shoestring budget of doing things not very nicely. B, I will still continue to make videos, regardless of how this goes. I still plan to do more videos than I was before. I can't do data recovery videos here because every time somebody wants to go to the bathroom, they have to bump into Steve. So Steve actually has to make sure that nobody has to go to the bathroom when he starts doing data recovery so they don't bump his chair. This is the type of stuff I'm not going to have to worry about when I move. I still plan on increasing the frequency of hard drive data recovery videos. I still plan to continue posting videos to this platform of board repairs and anything new that we learn about the newer devices. I still plan to continue to upload videos to Vimeo as well as YouTube. So in case YouTube goes crazy again and pulls what they did on Markiplier's fan base on me, my videos are always going to be archived for somebody to see. One of the reasons that I'm not offering any perks here is because the whole concept should be that the content in and of itself, you shouldn't be considering giving something unless the content has made you so much money that is the perk of it. But I want to make clear that I'm not going to have some sort of tier where if this doesn't go well, I'm just done uploading stuff, or I'm going to delete all this crap, or I'm going to remove it. Regardless of if I wake up and I see that this made 25 cents, once I'm done with my move and I'm actually in a lower stressed environment and I can actually do videos again, I still fully intend to film board repairs, iPhone repairs, and once Steve has space, actual hard drive data recovery like we've done before. There is not going to be, there is no sort of quid pro quo here where if this does not go well, I stop making content or I stop what I'm doing. That's about it for today. It looks like I've been rambling for over 25 or 26 minutes. I'm going to stop. If you think this stuff has been worthwhile and helped you make $10,000, do consider a one-time donation of 10 to 20. If you don't think it's worth jack shit, then don't give and you can welcome to keep watching. Thank you very much for everything. And as always, I hope you learned something.